Right, so I'm 44 years old now, and although you won't say it to my face, I must confess it's a very odd age to be doing YouTube. But there are benefits, and when I compare myself to, say, a 24-year-old finfluencer, then I'll say people of my kind have a bit more knowledge. That's knowledge beyond books, industry awareness, inside information. We definitely have a lot more experience in terms of situational awareness, what can or cannot be done. And most definitely, we would have, or at least I would have lost a lot more than a 24-year-old in terms of money and opportunities. And I think it's this combination of knowledge, experience, and even regret is what makes today's video extremely important and valuable. Of course, I have nothing against the younger content creators. Many of them are my friends. But contextually, if the goal here is to grow your wealth from 0 to 10 crores over the next 15 years, then a bookish plan like a 15 15 15 might not be everyone's cup of tea. What's 15 15 15? It's simple mathematics. You invest 1.5 lakhs every month for the next 15 years at 15%, and this will give you a corpus of 10 crores. So that's definitely one approach and something I had put forth in a previous ET Money video. But since many of us can't put in 1.5 lakhs every month, what I want to present today is a modified strategy to hit that 10 crore number, and a method I would have genuinely recommended to my younger self if I were in my 20s or 30s. Understandably, each of us have a different set of opportunities and limitations in front of us, so feel free to pick only those parts of the video that seem doable to you and do give it your best shot. Also, this video will be a bit free flowing. I might even ramble a bit. But yes, the objective remains what I said earlier, 0 to 10 crores in just 15 years. Let's begin. Alright, so everything starts with a plan, but before that, let's build a persona of who we are making a plan for. So this is, okay, let's call him Manish. Manish is a 34-year-old, has a spouse, child, parents who are not dependent on him. He works in IT, has a CTC of 16, so the monthly take home is about 1 lakh. Household expenses are 70k a month, and that leaves him with some 30,000 rupees of investable money. So not the bookish 1.5 lakhs, we're starting this exercise at a much lower number, just 30,000 a month. And if invested as an SIP and assuming 12% returns, which is what the Nifty 50 has delivered over long periods of time, Manish is likely to be short of his target by a good 85%. One can try out other variations as well, like a step-up SIP. And if one were to commit an annual increment of 10% to the SIP amount, it would take us to 2.6 crores, which is still only a quarter of where we need to be over a 15-year time frame. So I hope now you can understand the severity of this challenge, which means Manish needs to think out of the box, and use of traditional approaches like waiting for a pay hike or reducing your expenses or trying out high risk leverage based strategies, etc., is not likely to help him out. Having said this, the variables we need to work on are bang in front of us, and there are just a couple of them here. Firstly, there's invested capital, which is currently 30,000, and I'll come to how we can increase this number, or at least how I would have done it based on what I've learned through the years. And secondly, there's the returns percentage. And while we started with 12%, one has to wonder if this number could have been taken a bit higher, say 15%. So we'll look at that as well. But before we detail these out, here are a couple of areas you should have absolutely nailed before doing any of this. The first is having a safety net, especially when it comes to medical expenses. With rising healthcare costs pushing millions of Indians into poverty, our financial plan should account for the possibility that a single medical bill can wipe away all our savings, and fortunately, there's a solution for this. So yes, I'm very much talking about health insurance, and I'm sure by now all of you know how much of a fan I am of Ditto. It's the service I use for receiving the best advice on insurance, to better understand what's within the policy, the wordings, benefits, exclusions. It's the one place I trust to get the right answers to all my questions, and as I've always said, Ditto is the nicest place to buy health insurance from. Why is it nice? I mean, come on, you know all of this. Ditto doesn't spam you, no one will try to upsell or cross-sell you something you don't need. And everything starts with a 30-minute consultation, which is absolutely free. So if you're a Manish or a Neha an Amit, or a Shankar, a health insurance policy for the family is an absolute must. And for more specifics on what to buy, how much to pay, which one to buy, how to claim, etc., do connect with the folks at Ditto using the link in this video's description. Outside of insurance, the other area Manish should address is his emergency fund. Now, typically, this is about 6 months of expenses. And like many others, I too used to keep some 4 to 5 lakhs in my savings account or in a fixed deposit. But over time, what I've realized is that an emergency fund is not as much about the money I've safely kept aside, but it's more about how quickly can I access money. And please note here, I did not say my money, I used the word money. For example, Manish has parents who aren't dependent on him, and it's possible they have an extra 4 5 lakhs lying around the house or in the bank, and that's money that Manish can borrow during an emergency. Likewise, Manish has a credit card with a 5 lakh rupee limit. So that's again something that can be used during an emergency, and the outstandings can be paid back over the next few months, which is better than blocking this entire amount in a savings account, which frankly will not help us in our quest to reach our 10 crore target. Right, so now that we have the foundation laid out, let's start with the 30,000 bit. And as we looked at earlier, this number and even a 10% increment on it will not do us much good with our 10 crore target. Which means Manish has to increase his income, and more than traditional ways like asking HR for an increase in salary or hopping jobs, what I think has a better chance of success and a better result probability is to start working on a second income. I know what you're thinking. You must have imagined कि शंकर कोई अफलातूनी idea लेके आएगा. But just hear me out, because what I'm proposing here actually comes from my own experience, and after looking at how some of my friends have completely transformed their financial lives by supplementing their job wala income with a secondary one. For example, this is Rajiv. Rajiv is a data scientist based out of Bangalore, someone I've known for many years. And while his job paid him some 1.5 lakhs a month, Rajiv was able to supplement it by taking classes on AI and ML in one of those edtech startups. This was mostly during the weekends, but figure this. What was a take-home salary of 1.5 lakhs a month, thanks to Rajiv's second income had gone up to almost 5 lakhs. And now you know what I mean by transforming one's financial life. This also validates something that I'm sure many of you would agree. That is, you are the only person who can honestly define your worth. And if you leave it to the HR department of a company, they are always going to get this part wrong. So thankfully, Rajiv managed to define his own income rather than staying with what was offered by the company. And although I'm not sure if he's doing this anymore, but if one were to assume that Rajiv did this gig only for 4 years, then from the money he made, he would come very close to achieving his 10 crore target. Please recall, this is exactly what I had highlighted in a previous video as well. That is, the sooner you can get to your first crore, the easier it will be to reach a higher number like 10 crores. And what Rajiv did is proof of that, with a large chunk of his investment capital coming in the early years. Of course, I must say this was a unique situation. Not everyone's going to make 3.5 lakhs of extra income. But if Manish can manage an extra 50,000 a month, not only can that vastly improve his financial health, but realistically, it would lead to even bigger opportunities. Even bigger opportunities. That's a big phrase. And I'm sure some of you might be saying, ye kaise hoga? And that's really where a mindset shift is needed, a realization that everyone, me, you, all of us, have some skill in us that can be monetized, whether it's teaching, business, organizing things, selling, becoming a middleman, coaching, writing, negotiation, storytelling, and any of this can be turned into an income stream. Let me present another example. So this is Akhil. 30, maybe 31 years old, and until last year he was employed at EY as a senior associate. But Akhil always wanted to be in business, so in 2020, smack in the middle of COVID, he brought together a couple of video editors who were struggling for work. Akhil then connected with some smaller brands, got their video editing business, started making money on the side, and when he finally quit his job last year, Akhil was making a profit of some 5 lakh, 6 lakh rupees a month from that side business. And fast forward to today, he does a few crores in revenue each month. My point is, just like you regularly audit your finances, take some time off to do an audit of your skills and earning potential and what you can do to enhance your income streams. It's something I did last year, and the result of this was my newsletter, where I feature some well researched investment stories, including Zaggle Prepaid's impressive growth and international ambitions, Sky Gold's continued rise fueled by lower gold prices and increasing consumer demand, the story on Raymond Lifestyle and how its recent demerger has created a potential mispricing opportunity, and most recently, how and why Garware High Tech Films is likely to double its EPS over the next 2 years. The good news is that the recent stock market fall has improved valuations in most of these counters. So if you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, then kindly do so now. Do go through my write-ups on each of the stocks and also tell your friends about it. The second key variable for us is the returns percentage. Now the 12% I referred to earlier and I've used in all our calculations so far is what the Nifty 50 has delivered over long periods of time. But since there is no dearth of financial products now, and just to make it 100% clear, the products that I've marked in red here are not likely to ever give you 12%. Forget 12%. It won't probably even give you 10% per annum. Then comes the orange colored options, and again, because these may or may not deliver 12%, it leaves us with the green ones, which is still a lot of options. And remember, our objective here is to opt for those instruments that we believe can deliver a 15% return over a 15-year period. To be very specific on this, my suggestion to Manish would be to split his money in two, with the first SIP of 15,000 going into a multi-cap or a flexi-cap fund, while the second 15K is invested in a factor-based fund or ETF, which can either be a momentum fund, or if you're looking for something more stable, then one can also explore the Nifty Alpha Low Volatility 30 fund or ETF, whichever is available. Now, I'm sure you have questions on both. So let me start with flexi caps and multi caps. And very simply, both these categories have delivered returns of over 15% on a trailing 10-year basis, which is good to know. I also computed the 15-year rolling returns for the Nifty Multi-Cap 50-25-25 index, and this comes to an average of 14%, which I think is good enough for us to work with. When it comes to our factor-based funds, I think this table is simple enough and impressive enough to convince anyone that your wealth creation portfolio should have an adequate chunk of these smart beta funds in them. So whether you choose momentum, alpha, low vol, quality, or value, it's entirely up to you, but remember, all these performance numbers are based on historical data. There's no guarantee what's going to happen in the future. And because I haven't met anyone who can predict where the stock market will be 15 years from now, please be comfortable with your choices and do watch these videos for a better understanding of these indices and for more insights on how I am constructing my own investing portfolio. All right, so let's put all of this together. We started, or rather Manish started, with an assessment of how much he can save, which comes to 30,000 rupees a month. We then addressed the point around returns and some instruments that can help us achieve a 15% return. And actually, even before returns, we also addressed the two areas one needs to be prepared for: emergencies, or rather access to money during emergencies, and very importantly, medical expenses. And again, if you don't have health insurance for all members of your family, or if you're underexposed, then do connect with the folks at Ditto for a free 30-minute consultation using the link in this video's description. The next leg of our plan was around implementation. And although everything starts with that simple SIP of 30,000 a month, one can use combinations of percentage increments, lump sum additions like using some part of your annual bonus, increasing the SIP amount with bigger spurts like when you get a pay hike or a change in job. But the one area I really want to stress on, and especially for someone like Manish who has the need and the skills, and that is to build a secondary income. I'm repeating this again and again because what I think is more likely to happen, and what happens in most cases, and I've met more than a dozen people now, is that when that extra 40, 50,000 a month starts rolling in, and assuming you are committed to it and you're doing it strategically with a lot of upside, your income in the second year from this side hustle won't be the typical 10% increase like what we see in a job, but instead it's far more likely that you'll experience 100, 200, maybe a 300% jump, potentially doubling or tripling your earnings from there. The effect of this can be tremendous, like what happened with Rajiv, with Akhil. And as you can see here in the simulation, it will also help us reach our 10 crore target a lot faster than 15 years. And if I have to put a number to it, I think you can reach there in less than 10 years. Right. So as I said earlier, this wasn't your typical put 1.5, 2 lakh rupees every month and 15 saal mein 10 crore ban jayega wala type video. I counted on my experience before making my suggestions, and in that context, I'll even go on to say this video and the strategy discussed here is a lot more practical, and if you commit to it, it's a lot more doable. In fact, I look at myself as one of the test cases, and while I made a profit of just 5 lakhs in my first year of self employment, the second year is likely to yield some 6, 7, maybe 8 times of that. And I've now reached a stage where the money I make every month is somewhere close to what I used to earn in my ET Money days. My point is, if you're young, ambitious, and are open to taking calculated risks, I'll highly encourage you to try building a side hustle. But if that's not your thing, or if there are genuine constraints, then there's always the reliable SIP plus lump sum investment approach to fall back on. I sincerely hope you liked this video. It was a bit different from my other videos, but definitely something I wanted to put across for a very long time. Health insurance is something everyone should have, so do explore Ditto and avail their free 30-minute consultation service. Do subscribe to my newsletter. Wishing you a very happy Deepavali, and I'll see you very soon. Until then.